So obviously one of the key takeaways from this surah was that virtuous leadership comes over political opportunism. And today, especially in the United States, we see that it's kind of become trendy for young Muslims especially to start navigating in the space of political activism or even just politics in DC, for example. So we see now there's many organizations that advocate for Muslims in congressional offices as interns and then just leading their way up to be public servants. But obviously there are many, I guess, shortcomings that come with this, and there are a lot of principles that have to be sacrificed. So I think my question, and I apologize, this might be a little difficult, but I guess what would you say directly to a lot of these young Muslims? Because, I mean, being one, I personally was one who was interested in this field at first, and I know a lot of young Muslims my age that are still interested in this field of even becoming public officials or whatever. What would you say to them directly?
Yeah, I mean, the question is about political activism and the challenge of morality. You know, of course, it's a complicated thing. So on the one hand, political empowerment for a very small minority in the West is an absolute necessity, because Muslims are a very small minority, and because they are a very small minority, they are also disempowered, maybe even disproportionately disempowered to their numbers, and the disempowerment has very concrete results. It results, among other things, in the absence of Muslim issues on political agendas, and results in the continuation of systematic methods of oppression for Muslims, oppression which is a product of disempowerment. I mean, if you're disempowered, even if as an individual you are not oppressed because you're capable of realizing your potential, but collectively you are oppressed because you're disempowered, meaning that your needs and your priorities and your interests are not getting represented on the table, and they're being largely overlooked. And the problem was this form of disempowerment is that it has a very concrete result in very high attrition rates among Muslims, in that a lot of our children, as they grow up, they're not Muslim anymore. And they're not Muslim anymore because they're a product of social processes, and the social processes that they are a product of, it's not cool to be a Muslim. It is not trendy to be a Muslim. It is not socially accepted to be a Muslim. These are the concrete results of disempowerment. It is not within the fabric of reasonable pluralism to be a Muslim. So, you know, pluralism posits a paradigm for reasonability, what's reasonable. But when you are really disempowered, pluralism leaves you out of the paradigm of reasonability. So being a Muslim, in effect, is not reasonable. Or the only reasonable Muslim is really someone who's not a Muslim at all. They may be reasonable by descent, I mean, Muslim by descent, but that's pretty much it. So that's all on the one hand. On the other hand, of course, is that if you have Muslims become Muslim activism becomes a form of identity politics, meaning that you are politically active as a Muslim by identity, but you are completely devoid of moral content because you're not even sure in how a Muslim is different from anyone else. But you're just you're Muslim by identity, and so you play identity politics, and you see this a lot. I mean, you see this with a lot of Islamic organizations. What they're all about is like a form of identity politics in which ethnicity and Islamicity and all types of things are lumped together, and it's not very clear what's what, and so on. That, of course, is a problem in itself because then um, uh, uh, Islam as a religion, as a message, as a morality, as a system of ethics, uh, falls apart. And if Muslims become empowered, they often uh, lack any moral outlook or moral anything. I mean, the where I saw that in a very alarming way is when I found Muslim organizations that have somehow cozied up to power institutions that took a very bizarre position on Black Lives Matter, for instance, or that took a very bizarre position on even the Muslim ban, with some Muslims defending the Muslim ban as somehow acceptable or adhering to the mystification of power. Well, you know, we should just obey who's ever in power and not criticize them, and which is basically moral bankruptcy. I mean, it's basically saying we have no moral critique to offer, nothing to say. So you have these two very serious things, and they're both very real, and they're both and I don't know. I hate to sound dogmatic, but I don't see a way out but education. I mean, when I look at some of the Christian right that has been involved in politics, I mean, what strikes me is that the way these kids are weaned on the importance of Jesus to the world starts at a very early age. It continues on to their college choices. It continues on to their internships that they get in DC. It's like they're even, what was the name of that documentary we saw about
Family.
the family? Uh, about, you know, how the world needs Jesus and how you enter in politics carrying the Jesus banner. But I also know that a lot of people who are active in the Jewish community, they are what guides them is a very strong educational infrastructure that drills in them Jewish values and the Jewish tradition and Jewish mythology and Jewish systems of belief, and till it becomes second nature. I mean, some of them are not even religious, but they know what Jewish values are. And what I think Muslims really miss is, maybe because I'm an educator, but the educational infrastructure that Muslims have is extremely poor because most of our educators are not professional educators, not really educated themselves. So most of our educators are actually uneducated, and uneducated professionally and uneducated Islamically. So you have the double whammy. Most of them are just basically people who are average people who just. Most of our imams either still live in the medieval world. Their epistemology is very medieval. They have known nothing about the morality of the modern world, or live in the Middle East or Pakistan or India, and which is again a very serious problem. So I mean, I really think I I know I want Muslims to be involved in politics. Absolutely, I want Muslims to be the best lawyers. A lot of lawyers go into politics, or a lot of politicians are ex-lawyers or whatever. I want more Muslims to be law professors and to be judges and to be. I want Muslims to understand that they have to open up pathways. But I also think that these Muslims need strong educational institutions to back them up. When ethical issues come up, they need to have sophisticated, learned people that they can consult with and they can speak with and get sophisticated advice, not dogmatic, not you know the type of advice that we get from our typical uncles and figures in the Muslim community these days. Yeah.
Great question.